Hello. I have a couple of games that I never get to talk to people about. I like them very much. Right now, what you're hearing is the music for a game that might be dead after December 20th because they're turning off Flash. I'm not really in support of Flash, against support of Flash. I'm support of the game. I don't know very much about that designer either. I'm going to talk about what his name is and give a little bit of a well, why am I doing with this background? Let me switch back and say again. Hello. I'm not Tim Rogers. So, this is a video that I want to do about some games that inspire me very much. The music that you hear in the background, I hope it's not proprietary or whatever. So maybe let me pause it for a second. The game that I'm gonna talk about, I spend a lot of my time thinking about games that I don't get to play very often. I don't get to play many games, and I would rather that be the case, that I got to play more games and enjoy them. But over the years, I guess my career or teaching has taken a lot of the focus away from purely consuming the games and trying to figure out what best to do, what's the best situation for, obviously for the teaching side. But I want to leave that aside for a second. I just want to be me outside of work, regardless of what opinions I maintain at work. I want to say for sure that this is not related to the opinions of my employer, of course. So, over the years, that dedication to figuring out what to do about teaching is much different than figuring out what to do about the game designs that I care about, and the discussion and the talk in general about how games can contribute to humanity in general, to design overall, and to the field. I always tell everybody that I'm more into the field than into the industry. The industry is this group of companies that derive some kind of profit or value exchange for that. But the field of games includes jacks, tic-tac-toe, and all the what people consider lame games that they're not worth the money or attention or play. I think quite the opposite about that. I think that games should all be free at some point because they're part of what makes us sentient and makes us enjoy the time that we can't be solving things like entropy in general. So to fill that vacuum, to distract ourselves with something that might in fact teach us or discipline us or entertain us or help us meditate, that's what I think games are, and that's why it's the field. The field is larger than the industry can be. Now, what are those games, right? What are the games that I think that everybody should play or at least consider? And if you're a designer, you're wanting to enhance the discussion of what games are, not just what sells and whatever. Although those are perfectly fair questions to entertain and think about. So this one game is, again, one that may be lost because Flash is going bye-bye by at least Chrome standards. I'm sure there's some kind of project to keep Flash alive and to read the code somewhere. But those games that were done before Flash was thought to be a bad thing for computing or for computers or to design games and kiosk type experiences, Flash is going bye-bye in December 2020. So what do we say about those games? How do we find what is the collection of good Flash games that are worth exploring or keeping some kind of observation about it. I'm gonna do play one here that hopefully the cookies are deleted. That way I can start it from the get-go without any previous playthrough. So I'm going to show you how the first one is done.
Experience Lovesac Sactionals, the world's most adaptable couch. With just 2 pieces, the seat and the side, Sactionals are specially designed to evolve along with you and guaranteed to last a lifetime. Starting with just a few pieces, you can easily rearrange your Sactionals again and again. Then later on, when you're moving or redecorating, just change the covers to reinvent the look of your couch. Get Sactionals today and live in total comfort. Enjoy free shipping, plus our 60-day risk-free home trial.
Okay, it's on. So, here's the game. Okay, the game is called Silent Conversation by Gregory Weir. He's got a couple of games or videos on his YouTube page. Don't know much about the person himself, although I do think that this is quite ingenious. The game is about reading in general, and it has some features that you will see. I'm going to play through it. You'll see what it does in the tutorial. It'll tell you exactly what it does, but then you'll see the brilliance of how to bring together the subject matter to the experience that the player is providing or creating for themselves. So, here we go. Tutorial. You're the eye. Above the sentence, use your right and left arrow keys to move. Notice the words lighting up. Your goal is to read the stories and poems in this game thoroughly by touching as many words as you can, obviously with the eye. Press any key, try Z to jump. Pressing the key longer makes you jump higher. Very simple. Some words, and if you look up there, are hard to touch. That's okay. You don't have to get them the first time through. Leave them behind and get them sometime when you're interested in getting 100%. Sometimes you'll find words that are powerful. It's very interesting how the words come at like flying like that. They clear the screen when their letters hit you. And keep you from touching words for a while. Touch the powerful words first if you can. Look what happens if I get hit by it. All the letters go blank. Can't forget that fort. Okay. Powerful words first if you can, then the words you missed. In the upper right, you'll see a grade. Right now I have a B because I got hit by the letter, the word. Showing how you're doing. You get a good grade for touching every word in the piece, and a better grade if you never get hit by for a word. I just got hit. The level ends when you touch the last word. If you ever want to leave a level, just hit your escape key. Good. The last word here is luck. like this one very much. The Nameless City, Part 1 by H.P. Lovecraft. When I drew nigh the nameless city, I knew it was accursed. In the background, if you can't read it very well, it says under the moon, and the bottom says sands of uncounted age, and they're repeating. I was traveling in a parched and terrible valley under the moon, and afar I saw it protruding uncannily, the moon right up there, above the sands, as parts of a corpse may protrude from an ill-made grave. Fear spoke from the age-worn stones of this hoary survivor of the deluge, this great-grandfather of the eldest pyramid, and of Ulyss Aura, repelled me and bade me retreat from antique and sinister secrets that no man should see, and no man else had dared to see. Remote in the desert of Araby lies the nameless city, crumbling and inarticulate, its low walls nearly hidden by the sands of uncounted ages. It must have been thus before the first stones of Memphis were laid, and while the bricks of Babylon were yet unbaked. There is no legend so old as to give it a name, or to recall that it was ever alive, but it is told of in whispers around campfires, and muttered about by grandams in the tents of sheiks, so that all the tribes shun it without wholly knowing why. It was of this place that Abdul al-Hazred, the mad poet, dreamed the night before he sang his unexplained couplet. That is not debt which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die. I should have known that the Arabs had good reason for shunning the nameless city. The city told of in strange tales but seen by no living man, yet I defied them and went into the untrodden waste with my camel. I alone have seen it, and that is why no other face bears such hideous lines of fear as mine. Why no other man shivers so horribly when the night wind rattles the windows. When I came upon it in the ghastly stillness of unending sleep, it looked at me, chilly from the rays of a cold moon amidst the desert's heat. And as I returned its look, I forgot my triumph at finding it, and stopped still with my camel to wait for the dawn. For hours I waited, till the east grew gray and the stars faded, and the gray turned to roseate light edged with gold. I heard a moaning and saw a storm of sand steering among the antique stones, though the sky was clear and the vast reaches of the desert still. Then suddenly, above the desert's far rim, came the blazing edge of the sun, seen through the tiny sandstorm which was passing away. And in my fevered state, I fancied that from some of musical metal. To hail to hail the fiery disc as Memnon hails it from the banks of the Nile. My ears rang and my imagination seethed as I led my camel slowly across the sand to that unvocal place, that place which I alone of living men had seen. In and out amongst the shapeless foundations of houses and places, I wandered, finding never a carving or inscription to tell of these men, if men they were. If men they were who built this city and dwelt therein so long ago. The antiquity of This also happens when you read back and forward, and at least this has some semblance of skill that is not just reading ability. The antiquity of the spot was unwholesome, and I longed to encounter some sign or device to prove that the city was indeed fashioned by mankind. Ouch. There were certain I can't crawl it back. I lost that one. Alright, that's fine. There were certain proportions and dimensions in the ruins which I did not like. I had with me many tools and dug much within the walls of the obliterated edifices, but progress was slow, and nothing significant was revealed. When night and the moon returned, I felt the chill wind, which brought new fear, so that I did not dare to remain in the city. And as I went outside the antique walls to sleep, a small sighing sandstorm gathered behind me, blowing over the gray stones through the moon, though the moon was bright and most of the desert still. I awakened just at dawn from a pageant of horrible dreams, my ears ringing from some metallic peal. I saw the sun peering readily through the last gusts of the little sandstorm that hovered over the nameless city, and marked the quietness of the rest of the landscape. Once more I ventured within. Those brooding ruins that swelled beneath the sand like an ogre under a corvelet. And again dug vainly for relics of the forgotten race. At noon I rested, and in the afternoon I spent much of the time tracing the walls and bygone streets and the outlines of the nearly vanished buildings. I saw that the city had been mighty indeed, and wondered at the sources of its greatness. To myself, I pictured all the splendors of an age so distant that Chaldea could not recall it, and thought of Sarmath the doomed, that stood in the land of Emnar, when mankind was young, and of Ib, that was carven of grey stone before mankind existed. All at once I came upon a place where the bedrock rose stark through the sand and formed a low cliff. And here I saw it with joy, which seemed to promise further traces of the antediluvian people, hewn rudely on the face of the cliff. Were the unmistakable facades of several small squat rock houses or temples whose interiors might preserve many secrets of ages too remote too remote for calculation. Those sandstorms had long effaced any carvings which may have been outside. Low and sand choked all the dark apertures near me, but I cleared one with my spade and the cavern, I can't crawl past that, and crawled through it, carrying a torch to reveal whatever mysteries it might hold. When I was inside it, I saw that the cavern was indeed a temple, and beheld plain signs of the race that had lived and worshipped before the desert was desert. Primitive altars, pillars, and niches, all curiously low, were not absent. And though I saw no sculptures or fire skulls, there were many singular stones clearly shaped into symbols by artificial means. The lowness of the chiseled chamber was very strange, for I could hardly kneel upright, but the area was so great that my torch showed only part of it at a time. I shuddered oddly in some of the far corners. For certain altars and stones suggested forgotten rites of a terrible revolting and inexplicable nature, and made me wonder what manner of men could have made and frequented such a temple. When I had seen all that the place contained, I crawled out again, avid to find what the temples might yield. I had now approached, yet the tangible things I had seen made curiosity stronger than fear, so that I did not flee from the long moon-cast shadows that had daunted me when at first I saw the nameless city. In the twilight, I cleared another aperture and, with a new torch, crawled into it, finding more vague stones and symbols, though nothing more definite than the other temple had contained. The room was just as low, but much less broad, ending in a very narrow passage, crowded with obscure and cryptical shrines. About these shrines I was prying when the noise of a wind and my camel outside broke through the stillness and drew me forth to see what could have frightened the beast. The moon was gleaming vividly over the primitive ruins, lighting a dense cloud of sand that seemed blown by a strong but decreasing wind from some point, allowing the cliff ahead of me. I knew it was this chilly, sandy night which had disturbed the camel, and I was about to lead him to a place of better shelter when I chanced to glance up and saw that there was no wind atop the cliff, This astonished me and made me fearful again. But I immediately recalled the sudden local winds that I had seen and heard before at sunrise and sunset. Well, and judged it was a normal thing. I decided it came from some rock fissure leading to a cave, and watched the troubled sand to trace it to its source, soon perceiving that it came from the black orifice of a temple a long distance south of me, almost out of sight. Against the choking sand cloud I plodded towards this temple, which was, as I neared it, loomed larger than the rest, and shewed a doorway far less clogged with caked sand. I would have entered had not the terrific force of the icy wind almost quenched my torch. It poured madly out of the dark door, sighing uncannily as if it ruffled the sand spread among the weird ruins. Soon it grew fainter, and the sand grew more and more still, till finally all was at rest again. But the presence seemed stalking among the spectral stones of the city. And when I glanced at the moon, it seemed to quiver, as though mirrored in unquiet waters. I was more afraid than I could explain, but not enough to dull my thirst for wonder. So as soon as the wind was quite gone, I crossed into the dark chamber from which it had come. Hey, I suggest that while you're aware, maybe congratulate Gregory Weir on a very interesting design. It lends itself to a lot of things. I don't know if this is the first game of this type. It reminds me of a lot of different things, such as not just choose your own adventure in the form of selecting which things to move on from or to move past, because you can choose different words that you want to click on or click on, touch, you know. They used to have these 45 records or LPs you could buy at the store, or just for kids to read along with, and they would hear this playback of the story being read, like as if a person was reading it to you. But then you heard a chime and you're reading along with the book, and when that chime happened, it told you turn the page, and you couldn't skip ahead because you kind of wanted to hear the narrator read to you while you are reading the page yourself. You're seeing the page and it's got some nice drawings and something like that, and it's like almost as if you're reading when you have a vinyl record and you're reading the lyrics and you're listening to the music and just immersed very deeply in it. But it's obviously a passive activity because it's reading. There's no change in variety in it. So what you could do is just not turn the page and keep reading the same page again, and there's that delay in pausing and absorbing everything that's happening. Another thing that it reminds me of is obviously platformers, but very meaningful platformers such as Inside, or it's a follow-up to Limbo, which it's a linear game, but as you're progressing, the background or the environmental storytelling that's happening is telling you clues, what to feel about what's going on. Even though some actions are similar, you die in that game, very frequent stops, and they're always the same types of death. Your body withers or is hit. The situation that caused that is what tells you this is this beat of this story. This is this beat of this story. Another thing that's really interesting about the game that we just played, or that I just played, is that the level design includes some animations, some color, very tasteful color selections, some key words for that ideal context, and layouts to help the player feel what is going on. If it's frustrating, if it's something that is difficult to get through, they'll maybe give you gaps and you fall, or they'll give you more of the power words. So the level design tells me that the reader, whoever, or the writer of the game is an avid reader and is trying to convey the feeling of reading, not the story itself by itself per se. It's the feeling of having read that and some interpretation that might get you in the emotion of what you're getting to. So listen, obviously I think this is brilliant. I think this is great. There are other games that are not easy to distribute. They're not going to be on the consoles. Flash is leaving as a console itself. So it's worth noting that these weird and messed up type of experiences can be shown and talked about. I don't know. I think that there's still a lot of meat on this. If this is going to be a carcass, there's still a lot of meat to pick out of it. And it's a not trying to, piss off a lot of vegetarian friends. I'm talking about the fact that this might seem to be a game that is just dead. And I would want people to still, grab what they can and nourish from it. Designers especially. And while it's there, might as well read H.P. Lovecraft in a more interactive way without all the tentacles and getting in the way. All right. I hope that this is a little bit educational. Signing off. Maybe I'll show some other weird thing that I've picked up throughout my interests. Talk soon.